The champagne glass slipped from Kemi's manicured fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the Lagos penthouse as she stared at the phone screen. There, in high definition, was her husband of 15 years, Chief Adebayo Okafor, tangled in silk sheets with a woman young enough to be his daughter. But it wasn't just any woman. It was Zora Emeka, the 24-year-old interior designer who'd been coming to their Ikoyi mansion for months, supposedly redecorating their living spaces. The same Zora who smiled sweetly at family dinners, who called Kemi Mo with respect, who their 22-year-old son Chidi had been secretly texting late into the night. "Mommy, what happened?" Chidi's voice cut through her shock as he rushed into the living room, his University of Lagos law book scattered behind him. Kemi couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The video kept playing, her husband's weathered hands exploring Zora's smooth caramel skin, their bodies moving in a rhythm that mocked 20 years of marriage vows. The timestamp showed yesterday, 3 p.m., while Kemi had been at her women's group meeting, planning charity events for Lagos orphanages. "Mommy." Chidi grabbed her shoulders, and she finally looked up into his concerned eyes that mirrored his father's exactly. "Your father," she whispered, then stopped. How could she tell her son that the man he idolized was cheating? How could she explain that the woman destroying their family was the same woman Chidi had been falling for? Chidi's phone buzzed with a message notification. Kemi caught a glimpse of the sender's name, Zora Redheart. The room spun. Her son was in love with his father's side chick, and he had no idea. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife, not just adultery, but a twisted triangle that could destroy them all. Outside, Lagos traffic honked in its usual chaos, Afrobeat music drifted from nearby bars, and life continued normally. But inside this penthouse, 3 lives were about to collide in the most devastating way possible. Kemi's hands trembled as she faced an impossible choice: expose her husband and break her son's heart, or stay silent and watch her family crumble from lies. Chidi's phone buzzed again. Another message from Zora. Chidi stared at Zora's message. "Can't stop thinking about our conversation last night. You understand me in ways others don't. Red heart." His heart raced the way it always did when she texted. For 3 months, since she'd started the house renovation, their connection had grown from professional courtesy to something deeper. She listened to his dreams of becoming Lagos' top human rights lawyer, shared her struggles as a young Igbo woman building her interior design business in a male-dominated industry. "She's different, Mom," he told Kemi just last week. "Not like those campus girls who only care about designer bags and club nights." Now, as he helped his mother clean up the broken glass, Chidi's mind wandered to Zora's last visit. How she touched his arm while explaining fabric choices, how her perfume lingered in rooms long after she left, how she'd stayed late discussing everything from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie novels to Nigerian politics. "Mom, you seem upset. Is it Dad's business troubles again?" Chidi asked, watching Kemi's hands shake as she picked up glass shards. Kemi's successful catering business had suffered when Adebayo's construction company lost major government contracts 6 months ago. The tension at home had been thick enough to cut with a knife, but Chidi had assumed it was financial stress. "Chidi, sit down. We need to talk about your father." Kemi's voice carried a weight that made his stomach clench. Before she could continue, the front door opened with the electronic beep of the security system. Chief Adebayo Okafor strode in, his expensive agbode flowing behind him, gold chains catching the evening light. At 55, he still commanded attention, tall, broad-shouldered, with the confidence that came from building a construction empire from nothing. "My family," he boomed in his deep Yoruba-accented English. "How are my favorite people?" Chidi stood to embrace his father, but Kemi remained seated, her eyes fixed on her husband with laser intensity. "Adebayo," she said quietly. "We were just discussing your recent activities." Something flickered across the chief's face, too quick for Chidi to catch, but Kemi saw it. Guilt. Fear. The look of a man whose secrets were about to surface. What activities, my dear wife? Adebayo's smile never wavered, but his hand moved instinctively to straighten his already perfect tie. Kemi reached for her phone, her finger hovering over the video. One touch would explode their world. One touch would show Chidi exactly who Zora really was. Chidi's phone buzzed again. Another message from Zora: meet me tomorrow. I have something important to tell you. The Radisson Blu Hotel in Victoria Island buzzed with Lagos elite sipping champagne and discussing billionaire deals. But in the corner booth of the hotel restaurant, Zara Emeka's hands trembled as she stirred her jollof rice, unable to take a bite. Across from her, Chidi's eyes sparkled with the kind of innocent adoration that made her chest tight with guilt. He dressed carefully for their lunch, his best Ralph Lauren shirt, cologne she'd once mentioned liking, hope radiating from every gesture. You said you had something important to tell me. Chidi leaned forward, his law textbooks pushed aside. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Lagos Island's skyline, the third mainland bridge carrying endless traffic like arteries pumping life through the city. Zora's throat burned. For weeks, she'd been living a double life that was slowly killing her. Days spent in Chief Okafor's arms, accepting expensive gifts, playing the role of grateful young mistress. Evenings talking with Chidi about dreams and books and the kind of future she'd never imagined possible. The chief had discovered their friendship 2 days ago. His reaction had been swift and brutal. You will stop seeing my son immediately, he'd said, his usually jovial voice turning ice cold in his Ikoyi office. Or I will destroy your business, your family's shop in Onitsha, and your brother's university scholarship. Do you understand me, small girl? But looking at Chidi now, really looking at him, Zora saw something her heart had been trying to tell her for weeks. This wasn't just attraction or rebellion against her circumstances. This was love, pure and terrifying. Chidi, She started, then stopped as her phone buzzed with a message from Chief Okafor. Remember what we discussed. Make the right choice. Are you okay? You seem nervous. Chidi reached across to touch her hand, and the contact sent electricity through her entire body. The truth balanced on her tongue like poison. She could tell him everything, about his father's threats, about the months of manipulation, about how she'd been trapped between survival and genuine feeling. But she could also see the devotion in his eyes, the way he looked at her like she was precious and pure. I care about you, Chidi. More than you know. The words came out in a whisper. But there are things about my life, complications you don't understand. What complications? Zara, whatever it is, we can work through it together. A elegant woman in expensive osouk walked past their table, and Zara recognized her immediately, Mrs. Folake Okafor, the chief's sister. The woman's eyes narrowed as she took in the intimate scene, and Zora knew their lunch would be reported within hours. The trap was closing from all sides. Chidi, what if I told you that someone you trusted had been lying to you? That your whole world wasn't what you thought it was? Before he could answer, Zora's phone rang. Chief Okafor's name flashed on the screen, and she knew her time was up. Chief Okafor's study in their Ikoyi mansion resembled a shrine to success, awards from the Nigerian Institute of Builders, photographs with governors and senators, shelves lined with leather-bound books he'd never read. But tonight, surrounded by the trappings of his achievements, Adebayo felt his carefully constructed world cracking. She's becoming a problem, he muttered into his phone, pacing between his massive mahogany desk and the window overlooking their swimming pool. On the other end, his younger brother turned listened from his Abuja office. I warned you about mixing business with pleasure, Adebayo. Young girls like that one are dangerous, too emotional, too unpredictable. Through the window, Adebayo could see Kemi in the garden, tending to her vegetable patch under the security lights. 20 years of marriage had taught him to read her body language like a book, and tonight her rigid shoulders screamed suspicion. It was supposed to be simple, he said, loosening his tie. A young girl grateful for attention and money. Instead, she's falling in love with my son, and Kemi is asking questions I can't answer. The irony wasn't lost on him. 3 months ago, when Zara had first arrived for the renovation consultation, Adebayo had seen opportunity. A beautiful, struggling young woman who needed work and protection in Lagos' competitive business world. He'd offered both, with strings attached. But Chidi had been home from university that day, and Adebayo had watched his son's eyes light up when Zara smiled. He should have ended things then, should have found another designer. Instead, his ego had been flattered by the competition even from his own son. You need to cut her loose, Tond advised. Pay her off, transfer her to Abuja, whatever it takes. Before this explodes in your face. It's not that simple anymore. Adebayo sank into his leather chair, suddenly feeling every one of his 55 years. She knows about the Lekki project, about the money we moved through shell companies. If she talks, then make sure she doesn't talk. The line went quiet as both brothers contemplated what that meant. Outside, a generator hummed to life as NEPA cut power to the neighborhood, just another reminder that even in affluent Ikoyi, control was an illusion. Adebayo's laptop chimed with an email from his accountant. The subject line made his blood run cold. Urgent, bank account irregularities detected. His hands shook as he opened the message. Someone had been accessing his accounts, transferring small amounts to untraceable destinations. The digital trail led back to last week, right after his confrontation with Zora at the hotel. Tond, we have a bigger problem, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside his study. Kemi's voice called out, Adebayo. We need to talk. Now. The door handle turned slowly, and Adebayo realized his 20-year marriage was about to end in the next 5 minutes. Kemi stood in the doorway of her husband's study, her phone clutched in her right hand like a weapon. 20 years of marriage had taught her to recognize Adebayo's guilty expressions, and tonight his face carried the look of a man caught stealing from the collection plate. Sit down, she commanded, her voice carrying the authority she'd developed running Lagos' most successful catering business. And put down that phone. Adebayo complied, but his eyes darted toward his laptop screen where financial reports still glowed. Kemi moved closer, catching glimpses of bank statements and transfer records that made her stomach clench. You want to know what I discovered today? She held up her phone, the video thumbnail showing Adebayo and Zora in compromising positions. Or should I tell you what our son doesn't know yet? The blood drained from Adebayo's face. Kemi, let me explain. Explain what? That you've been sleeping with a girl young enough to be your daughter. That our son has been texting her every night, thinking he's found love. That you've turned our family into a disgusting triangle of lies. She sank into the chair across from his desk, her fury temporarily exhausted by grief. I kept wondering why you were coming home so late, why you smelled like unfamiliar perfume, why you suddenly needed a renovation that never seemed to progress. Adebayo reached across the desk, but Kemi pulled away. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me after where your hands have been. It meant nothing, he said desperately. She was just available. Grateful. It was never supposed to involve Chidi. But it does involve him. Kemi's voice rose to a shout. He's planning to propose to her, Adebayo. Our son wants to marry your side chick. The words hung in the air like a curse. Outside, Lagos continued its nightly symphony, generators humming, night guards calling out security checks, the distant sound of Afrobeats from nearby bars. But inside the study, silence pressed down like a physical weight. How long? Kemi asked finally. 6 months. 6 months. She laughed bitterly. 6 months while I planned your birthday party, while I defended you to my family when the business started failing, while I made excuses for your absence at church, at dinners, at our anniversary. Adebayo's phone buzzed with a text message. Kemi could see it clearly. Meet me tonight. We need to talk about Chidi. Z. She's texting you, Kemi observed, her voice deadly calm. Right now, while you're here with me, she's making demands. Kemi, please. I can fix this. I can make it right. How? She stood, her decision crystallizing with each word. By destroying our son's heart. By letting him find out the truth on his own. By allowing this girl to manipulate our entire family. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, and Chidi's voice called out, Dad. Mom. Is everything okay? I heard shouting. Both parents froze. The moment of reckoning had arrived, whether they were ready or not. The living room felt smaller than usual as the three family members sat in a triangle of tension. Kemi occupied her usual spot on the cream leather sofa, while Adebayo stood by the window, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Chidi perched on the edge of the armchair, sensing the electricity in the air but not understanding its source. Son, there's something we need to discuss, Adebayo began, his voice hoarse. About Zara. Chidi's face lit up at her name. Actually, Dad, I wanted to talk to both of you about her too. I think I'm ready to ask her to marry me. The words hit the room like a physical blow. Kemi closed her eyes, and Adebayo's hands clenched into fists at his sides. After graduation next month, I want to start my law practice, and I want Zara by my side. She understands my dreams, supports my ambitions. She's not like other girls who just want material things. Chidi, stop, Kemi whispered. But her son continued, his enthusiasm building. I know she's older than most girls I've dated, and she's more experienced in business, but that's what I love about her. She's mature, focused. And the way she looks at me, Mom, like I'm her entire world. Adebayo turned from the window, his face twisted with pain. Chidi, you don't understand. What don't I understand? That you both think I'm too young. I'm 22, Dad. You were my age when you started your first business. Kemi pulled out her phone, her finger hovering over the video. One touch would shatter her son's innocence forever, but the alternative was letting him live a lie. Show him, Adebayo said quietly. What? Chidi looked between his parents, confusion replacing enthusiasm. Show him the video, Kemi. He needs to know. Kemi's hand trembled as she pressed play. The sound filled the room, her husband's voice mixed with Zora's moans, intimate words that made Chidi's face go pale. What is this? Chidi whispered, staring at the screen. This isn't real. This can't be real. But the evidence was undeniable. His father's distinctive laugh, Zora's voice calling out Adebayo's name, the familiar bedroom of the Victoria Island apartment his father used for business meetings. Chidi's phone slipped from his lap, clattering onto the marble floor. How long? He asked, his voice barely audible. 6 months, Kemi answered. 6 months. Chidi stood suddenly, his law book scattering. 6 months while I was falling in love with her. The young man's face cycled through emotions, shock, betrayal, rage, heartbreak. When he looked at his father, Adebayo saw 22 years of hero worship crumbling in real time. You knew, Chidi said to Adebayo. You knew I cared about her, and you said nothing. Son, I tried to end it. Tried. Chidi's voice cracked. She's been playing us both, and you tried. His phone buzzed on the floor. Another message from Zara, missing you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Red heart. Chidi read it, then held his phone against the wall, where it shattered like his trust in everyone he'd ever loved. The University of Lagos Law Faculty building buzzed with final exam energy, but Chidi sat in the empty courtyard, staring at his new phone without seeing it. 3 days had passed since his world imploded, and he'd been living like a ghost, attending classes, taking notes, pretending normalcy while his insides burned. His classmates whispered when they thought he couldn't hear. Lagos social circles were small, and gossip traveled faster than bad traffic news. By now, half the university knew that Chidi Okafor's father was sleeping with his girlfriend. "Guy, you dey alright?" His best friend Emeka dropped onto the concrete bench beside him, concern etched across his dark features. Chidi couldn't answer. How could he explain that the woman he'd planned to marry had been laughing at him for months? That every sweet text, every intimate conversation, every moment he thought they were building something real had been a performance. "I fit help you, you know," Emeka continued in their usual mix of English and Pidgin. "My uncle knows some guys wey fit handle this kind situation." "Handle it how?" Chidi's voice sounded hollow even to himself. "Make them disappear. Both of them. Clean, quiet. Your papa gets money, but shame go kill am more than anything." The suggestion hung in the humid Lagos air like a threat. In the distance, generators hummed as another NEPA outage hit the campus, and students complained about assignments lost to power failures. Chidi's new phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "It's Zara. We need to talk. Meet me at the Sheraton tonight at 8 p.m. Please, Chidi. I can explain everything." He showed the message to Emeka, who sucked his teeth in disgust. "This girl gets mind oh. After everything, she still dey try manipulate you." But something in Chidi's chest stirred, not love, but curiosity mixed with rage. What could she possibly say? What explanation could justify months of deception? "I'm going to meet her," he said quietly. "Chidi, no. That no foolish move. I need to hear her voice when she tries to lie to me again. I need to watch her face when I tell her I know everything." Emeka studied his friend's expression and didn't like what he saw. "What you planning, guy?" Chidi stood, his law books forgotten on the bench. "Justice." As he walked toward the campus gate, his phone buzzed again. This time it was his mother. "Your father moved out this morning. Divorce papers being filed tomorrow. I'm sorry, son. Come home when you're ready." The message should have brought satisfaction, but Chidi felt nothing except the cold clarity that came with absolute betrayal. His family was destroyed, his heart was broken, and the woman responsible wanted to meet for explanations. He had 6 hours to decide whether he was going to the Sheraton for closure or revenge. The Sheraton Hotel's lobby gleamed with marble and crystal, a testament to Lagos luxury where power brokers made deals over expensive whiskey. But in the corner lounge area, Zara sat alone, her usual confidence replaced by the nervous energy of someone facing judgment. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a modest blue dress that covered her knees, minimal makeup, hair pulled back simply. Not the seductive image Chief Okafor preferred, but something that might remind Chidi of the woman he'd fallen for during their innocent conversations. At 8:15 p.m., she spotted him walking through the entrance, and her heart nearly stopped. 3 days had transformed him from the eager young man who'd brought her flowers to something harder, more dangerous. His eyes, when they found hers across the lobby, carried no warmth. "You came," she said as he sat across from her, his posture rigid. "I almost didn't." Chidi's voice was steady, controlled. "My friend advised against it." A server approached, but Chidi waved him away. "This wasn't a social call." "I know you have questions," Zara began, her rehearsed speech crumbling under his stare. "Just one, actually." He leaned forward slightly. "When you were in my father's bed, did you think about me?" The directness hit her like a slap. "Chidi, please. Did you laugh about how naive I was? How easy it was to make me believe your lies?" Tears gathered in her eyes, but she forced herself to maintain eye contact. "It wasn't like that. What I felt for you was real." "Real?" His laugh was bitter. "You were sleeping with my father and texting me love messages. Which part of that was real? I never wanted to hurt you. When I started, when your father and I..." She struggled for words that might make sense of the insanity. It was survival, Chidi. I needed the work, needed his protection in this city. But then I met you, and everything changed. Everything except your behavior. Zara flinched. You don't understand what it's like to be a young woman alone in Lagos, trying to build a business. Your father offered opportunities, connections, security. I thought I could manage both relationships until... Until what? Until you figured out which one was more profitable. Until I realized I was falling in love with you. The words burst out louder than she'd intended, drawing glances from nearby tables. Chidi's expression didn't soften. Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't sleep with someone's father while planning a future with them. His phone buzzed with a message, and Zora caught a glimpse of the sender's name, Dad. The message was visible. Son, she's dangerous. Don't trust anything she says. She's been stealing from my accounts. Zara saw it too and felt the blood drain from her face. Chidi, I can explain about the money. There's more. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against marble. How deep does this go, Zara? She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Please, just listen. Your father threatened my family, my business, my brother's education. I had to protect myself. By stealing from him. By documenting everything. The payments, the threats, the coercion. I have recordings, bank transfers, everything. Chidi stared at her, seeing not the woman he'd loved but a stranger capable of deceptions he'd never imagined. You're blackmailing him. I'm protecting myself, she whispered. Chief Adebayo Okafor's temporary apartment in Victoria Island felt like a prison compared to his Ikoyi mansion. Expensive furniture couldn't disguise the fact that his 20-year marriage was over, his son hated him, and his political connections were whispering about scandals that could destroy his construction empire. His phone rang constantly, reporters, business associates, family members demanding explanations he couldn't provide. Lagos society thrived on gossip, and a prominent chief's adultery with a young woman was premium entertainment. But it was the email-marked urgent that made his hands shake as he poured another glass of Hennessy. The message was simple: meet me at the Eco Hotel tomorrow at noon. Come alone, or everything goes public. Z. She's lost her mind, he muttered, but deep down he knew Zara held all the cards. The recordings she mentioned to Chidi were real, intimate conversations where he'd boasted about government contracts, discussed bribes, revealed financial schemes that could land him in Kirikiri prison. His brother Ton arrived at midnight, slipping past the doorman with the practiced ease of someone avoiding attention. The family is panicking, Ton said without preamble, helping himself to whiskey. Mama called from the village asking why her church friends are sending condolence messages about your marriage. The extended family group chat is on fire. It gets worse, Adebayo showed him Zora's email. Ton read it twice, his expression darkening. She's blackmailing you. She has everything. Audio recordings, bank transfer receipts, photos of documents I was stupid enough to show her. If she releases any of it, then we make sure she doesn't. The brothers sat in silence, both understanding the implication. Outside, Lagos nightlife continued, clubs pumping Afrobeats, late-night food vendors calling their wares, the constant hum of a city that never truly slept. What about Chidi? Adebayo asked. What about him? The boy is hurt, angry, but he's your son. He'll come around eventually. But Adebayo wasn't sure. The look in Chidi's eyes 3 days ago had been pure hatred, not just for the betrayal, but for the realization that his hero had feet of clay. His phone buzzed with a text from Kemi, divorce paper signed. Don't contact me again unless it's about Chidi's graduation next week. Next week. His son would graduate law school, begin his career, start his adult life. And Adebayo would miss it all because his own selfish desires had destroyed everything that mattered. Another message arrived, this one from an unknown number. I know what you're thinking about doing to Zora. Touch her, and I'll make sure every newspaper in Nigeria gets copies of everything she has. Your son. Adebayo dropped his phone like it had burned him. Chidi wasn't just angry, he was protecting the woman who destroyed their family. Turned, we have a bigger problem, he whispered. Outside, thunder rumbled as Lagos' rainy season prepared another downpour, and Chief Adebayo Okafor realized he'd lost not just his wife and reputation, but his son's loyalty forever. The Eco Hotel's presidential suite overlooked Lagos Island's glittering skyline, but the luxury felt hollow as three lives prepared to collide in ways none of them had expected. Zara stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching boats navigate the lagoon below while her heart hammered against her ribs. At exactly noon, Chief Okafor arrived, his usual confident swagger replaced by the careful movements of a man walking into his own execution. He'd brought security, 2 men who waited in the hallway, but Zara had come alone. You're making a mistake, he said without preamble, his voice carrying the authority that had built construction empires and political alliances. The only mistake I made was trusting you, Zara replied, not turning from the window. 6 months ago, you promised protection, mentorship, opportunities. Instead, you gave me threats and manipulation. You accepted everything willingly. The money, the gifts, the apartment. Because I was 24 and alone in Lagos with no family connections, no godfathers, nothing but talent and hope. You exploited that desperation. Adebayo moved closer, his reflection joining hers in the glass. What do you want? Money. A contract. Safe passage out of Nigeria. Justice. The word hung in the air like a verdict. Behind them, the suite's door opened quietly, and both turned to see Chidi entering with a briefcase and a laptop bag. Son, Adebayo breathed. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, Dad. But here we all are. Chidi set up his laptop on the suite's conference table, his movements efficient and loyally despite his youth. 3 months before graduation, he was already thinking like the attorney he'd soon become. Zara asked me to be here as a witness, he explained, his voice carefully neutral. To ensure everyone's safety. A witness to what? Adebayo demanded. Zara finally turned from the window, her phone in her hand. To the end of your political career. She pressed play, and the room filled with Adebayo's voice. The Lagos State Commissioner owes me 3 favors from the last election. We can get any contract approved, any permit pushed through, any environmental report buried. That's how business works in Nigeria, relationships, not regulations. This is illegal recording, Adebayo said desperately. Not admissible in court. But perfect for social media, Chidi said quietly. Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp groups, newspaper headlines. Court admissibility isn't the issue anymore, Dad. Zara held up a second phone. This one has your discussion about the Lekki land grab. The families you displaced, the documents you falsified, the officials you bribed. You're destroying an innocent man's reputation. Innocent. Chidi's control finally cracked. You slept with the woman I love while she was recording your confessions. You destroyed our family for sex and stupidity. The 3 stood in triangle formation, each representing different types of power, inherited privilege, desperate survival, and righteous anger. What do you want? Adebayo asked again, his voice broken. Zara looked at Chidi, something passing between them that felt like forgiveness or understanding or maybe just shared exhaustion. I want you to confess publicly to the financial crimes. I want you to return the stolen money to the Lagos State Treasury. I want you to resign from all political positions. She paused. And I want you to leave your son alone to build his own life without your shadow. And if I refuse? Zara smiled, but it held no warmth. Then by tomorrow morning, every news outlet in Nigeria will have copies of everything. Your choice. Outside the windows, Lagos continued its eternal hustle, millions of people chasing dreams, building futures, surviving another day in Africa's most dynamic city. Inside the suite, a family saga reached its conclusion not with violence or dramatic confrontation, but with the quiet transfer of power from father to son, from oppressor to victim. Chidi closed his laptop and looked at his father one final time. "I'll always love you, Dad. But I never forgive you." As thunder rolled across Lagos Island, announcing another afternoon rainstorm, the three walked away from each other, toward prison, toward freedom, toward the uncertain future that awaited them all. What an explosive conclusion. Did justice prevail, or will there be more twists in this family's story? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more shocking African marriage drama. Share this story with someone who loves intense family sagas, and comment below, what would you have done in Chidi's position? Where are you watching from?